Well, lesson 4 is about Oracle VM guest editions. We have this objective of completing this lesson. You should be able to explain the benefits of the Oracle VM guest editions. These are a bunch of different packages that help us to automate the process of configuring any virtual machine that you have created using templates, or for example at a later time if you want to reset this state and to repeat similar steps much like in the first boot. We're going to learn how to install these Oracle VM guest editions in your virtual machines. We exercise the messaging feature between the Oracle VM Manager and the virtual machines. The messaging feature is bidirectional between the manager and the virtual machines. We disable the Oracle VM template configuration scripts for some specific targets, and we're going to learn how to configure a virtual machine with the first boot with her. Well, about the Oracle VM guest editions is a set of packages that you install in a virtual machine running the Oracle Linux 5, 6, or 7 operating system. Well, you have a list of these different packages in the next slides, but most important is that you get these packages from the different JAM Unbreakable Linux network repositories to be able to perform the installation. So you need to make reference to all of these different operating system versions to get access to the specific packages that you need. Also remember that any template that you are going to download from the Oracle server delivery website comes with the guest edition already installed. The guest edition packages provides you the following enhancements. For example, it gives us bidirectional communication between the Oracle VM Manager and the operating system running on the virtual machine. So the messages are based on key value pairs. So you could send in one direction or another these messages, for example, to take responsive actions on the VMs, or for example to log information that you send from the VMs to the manager, and after that using the Oracle VM Manager console, the user interface of the CLI, to be able to get this information. Also give us this another enhancement about obtaining the guest IP address information that is visible from the Oracle VM Manager utility, and the ability to configure or reconfigure your virtual machines during the first boot. As you see, for example, in previous labs, in previous lessons, you created new VMs based on templates or from scratch, and you would see that, for example, from templates it comes with these guest additions. So the first time you boot the VM, it should be asking you to provide information much like the host name, IP network configuration, and the root password, the RAN, and so on. So is the option to, for example, to automate this process during this first boot using these guest additions. Well, about installing the Oracle VM guest additions, we create the Oracle Linux virtual machine that running these Oracle Linux versions 5, 6, or 7 with this Unbreakable enterprise kernel. So we need to get access to the Unbreakable Linux network websites in which you have these customer gem repositories to be able to get access to this. We need to add the following packages to the virtual machine. All of them are listed. You see that it comes, most of them start with the name ovm-template-config, and it affects to different levels, much like, for example, configuring the date time of the host, for example, the way that you want to get authenticated. If you want to disable the firewall, you want to enable and configure a static or dynamic IP address assignments, if you want to enable or disable the SE Linux security edition, if you want to disable the SSH protocol. About the system is the option to configure some properties that we have in the system about parameters and so on in the kernel, and user is to configure the password for the root user. Well, using the Oracle VM guest editions daemon and the template driver configuration, when we install the Oracle VM guest editions in your virtual machine, the ovmd command is installed in the user as being directory. This command runs as a daemon, as a service. So with the service utility, you should be able to check the status of the daemon. And also you are able to execute as a command. So you could invoke in a console, in a terminal, the command to take different actions. With the OVMD command, you can, for example, send messages to the Oracle VM Manager or resize the messages from the Oracle VM Manager. Also, you can run a script, usually a configuration script. So for configure, for example, the different components, much like the datetime, much like the host name, much like the password, root user, or the firewall, or the SE Linux functionality that runs one. And also you could enable or disable the initial configuration at the next boot. It's much like to reset these components, and the next time you reboot the virtual machine, okay, you should be asked to provide this information. About sending and receiving messages helps you, for example, to be able to provide this information during the first boot without the need to have a physical access to the virtual machine. Well, the way that we send and receive messages with the OVMD command, okay, we have an example here. We use the OVM CLI utility, and we use the send VM message command. In this case, we send the message to this VM, which name is PVM7, and with this key value pair, with the key of shape and with the value message of circle. And log equal yes means that you create a log entry into the log files. What you get about the status is was successfully or not send the message from the manager to the virtual machine. Well, also to retrieve the messages from the virtual machine, for example, you could use the OVMD command. With the OVMD -O, you should be able to get this. In addition to this, you are able to view the messages, for example, using the Oracle VM Manager, the user interface with the events section of the different virtual machines. So you get a list, for example, and it shows us the key, in this case is color, and the red is the value with the OVMD -O. Well, obviously this is the way. You have a daemon that gives us the option to receive and send messages, and also this daemon is responsible to manage the Oracle VM template configuration script. This script is named ovm-template.config. This is the master script that is used to set up automatic configuration in the virtual machine. This master script works in conjunction with other set of modular configuration scripts. Typically, these scripts are stored in etc template.d scripts directory. So you see we have authentication for establishing or setting up the root password, datetime to change the date and time of the host, the clock of the host, firewall to enable or disable the firewall, network to set up a static or dynamic protocol, static or DHCP protocol to assign an IP address to the host, is Linux to enable or enforce or disable this security addition, SSH to enable or disable the SSH daemon to let you connect remotely with the SSH protocol, system to change the host name, for example, and user, in this case, to provide password for the root user or create additional users. Well, you could invoke also this OVM template configuration script manually, or you will see that, for example, in the first boot, it's invoked automatically. You can enable or disable these scripts for a particular target. So for targets have something similar than the run levels in the sys5 or infrastructure for starting up or shooting down the host that you have in Unix Linux platforms. Well, there are two mainly targets being used, which are configure and the cleanup. Configure is invoked typically when you execute the first boot time, right? You start the first boot time, the VM, and cleanup is, for example, if you want to reset the VM to be started as the starting point in which you should be asked again to provide information of all of these different steps, right? And the enable scripts run for the selected target. Well, here in this screen, we are able to know, for example, these targets. So you see that, for example, we have the ovm-checkconfig. This is a similar checkconfig utility that we have in Unix Linux platform, but in this case it's related about these VM template configuration scripts. So we could list, and you will see about the name of the script, authentication, datetime, and so on. The target, in this case, you see that only the configure and cleanup are set up by default, and the others are usually not being used, okay, at this moment. So you see that, for example, is similar to the run levels, no? So configure is on, and it's specify which is, for example, the priority or the order that should be executed when you run for the first boot time, or for example, you perform a cleanup and you reboot the host and you want to provide this information again. So after you install the guest addition packages, the initial settings for the configuration module and the associated targets are shown in this image below. All the configuration modules or scripts are set to execute for the configured target. And for the cleanup target, the firewall and the S Linux configuration scripts are disabled. You see it appears off. So if you perform any change in the firewall or any change in the ES Linux, if you perform the cleanup, okay, the firewall and the ES Linux configuration doesn't change and is not going to be asked for the next time. Well, about also, for example, knowing which is the different values that should be take a configuration script for these targets when you are configuring or you are cleaning up, and which is, for example, the current value that it takes, you have the enumerate. So you can list the key value pairs expected by a configuration script by using the OVM template config master script with this enumerate option by supplying a script name. So in this example, we use the ovm-template-config master script. Human readable is to display in format that you should be able to read clearly. And with that enumerate, we list the different option of values for example, the configure step, okay, for the firewall script. So you see that in this case, it shows that the firewall with a description, it shows, for example, also the values that it should be able to take, true or false. And in the hidden, now at this moment, it shows, for example, that it has a value of true. And very important, which is the key. Okay, this com.oracle.linux.network.firewall. Firewall is the internal name for this script that, for example, you need to provide if you want to change or you want to enable or disable. Well, so after that, after you know that you perform the installation of these virtual machine guest additions, in addition to knowing that which is the daemon that you have, for example, to sending and receiving messages if you want, in addition to know which is the script that shows us which is the, for example, different targets or rule levels that you have all of the different scripts to be executed, authentication, datetime, and so on. You know that mainly the guest addition is for implementing the first boot configuration. Well, to do a show, typically after you create a virtual machine, you need to prepare and configure this to be able to, after that, to create a template based on this virtual machine. So before the first boot, these are the recommended steps that are going to be requested. You need to create a configure a virtual machine to serve as a template. You use the ovm-checkconfig command to enable or disable the configuration of scripts for the configured target. So you, for example, you use this to set on off or off the, for example, authentication, firewall, SSH, user, system that are going to be enabled. So you should need to provide information during the first boot or not. That's right. So you prepare a list of all the key value pairs required by each enabled configuration script. Remember, this has a name much like com.oracle and so on. We prepare, after that, we configure the OS in your virtual machine by using the ovmd command with the cleanup target. So you execute the ovmd, -s means the script that you want to execute, and the cleanup. So the cleanup reset the information. So the next time you will reboot the machine, you will get asked for the different configuration and scripts that you enabled previously with the ovm-checkconfig command. After that, you set up the virtual machine to configure for the boot time. With the service OMD, you enable the initial config in this way, and you shut down the virtual machine and you convert to a template. Next, after you clone the virtual machine, you start the virtual machine. You use this utility or facility for sending messages, and when the configuration scripts have completed, the virtual machine continues its booting process. So after the boot process, you need to log into the virtual machine and verify this configuration. And that's all for this lesson with the quiz with of the Oracle with the Oracle VM Guest Edition installed in your virtual machine. You can send key value pairs to your virtual machine. You can receive key value pairs from your virtual machine. Configure your virtual machine with the first boot wizard and find the guest IP information from a virtual machine that runs the Oracle VM Guest Editions of VMD series. All of the above. The correct version, the correct answer to this question is E. All of the above. Well, that's all for this. So as a summary, you have learned what's the meaning of the Oracle VM Guest Edition, which are the benefits of this Oracle VM Guest Edition, much like we explained in the previous slide with the quiz. Install the Oracle VM Guest Edition in your virtual machines. How you do this? It's very important that you typically do this at the time you are using a VM as the source of creating templates, because after that, when you clone the templates, you create additional VMs with using these templates. These VMs, for the first boot time, for example, you are able to automate the process of setting up or enabling or disabling some of these components. Also, we exercise the messaging feature between the Oracle VM Manager and the virtual machines. Also, how do you have the option to enable or disable these configuration scripts for the specific targets, for example, for configuring and the cleanup steps, and how to configure a virtual machine with the first boot wizard. And that's all for lesson number 4. Practice 4-1, install the Oracle VM Guest Edition in a virtual machine and exercise the messaging function. It will be on this practice you perform the following tasks. We examine the Oracle VM Guest Edition setup in the virtual machine named ISCSI_PVM3, which already has the Guest Edition installed. Note, recall that virtual machine ISCSI_PVM3 was created from a OVM_OL6U5_X86_64_PVM.OVA virtual appliance, which was downloaded from the Oracle Server Delivery Cloud. Most current templates and virtual appliances from the Oracle Server Delivery Cloud have the Oracle VM Guest Edition already installed. Virtual machines cloned from these templates enter the configuration wizard when they are first boot. Install the Oracle VM Guest Edition in the virtual machine named ISCSI_PVM1, and we start the OVMD service in ISCSI_PVM1 and exercise the Oracle VM Guest Edition messaging facility, which allows bidirectional communication between the Oracle VM Manager and the operating system running in the virtual machine. Well, as a view of the Oracle VM Guest Edition packages, in this practice you install the Oracle VM Guest Edition packages in a virtual machine that you want to use as a template for deploying additional virtual machines through the cloning process. For your convenience, the following table lists the packages: the keymod-ovm APA-UE key. The usage of this package is the kernel module that provides the ability to communicate messages between the Oracle VM Manager and a virtual machine, and the other way around. Since the UE key 2, this module is shipped with the kernel. Another package name is libovm APA, and the usage is the library that communicates with the OVM APA kernel infrastructure. libovm APA-devel package is the optional package to create additional extensions for OVMD. The OVMD package is the daemon that handles configuration and reconfiguration events and provides messaging facility. Shen Store Provider works with OVMD for the messaging facility. OVM-template-config, Oracle VM template configuration utility used to perform first boot installation configuration either locally from the virtual machine console or remotely through a messaging facility. Another package is OVM-template-config-authentication. is for the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure root's password. Other package is ovm-template-config-date time is the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure the date and the time. The ovm-template-config-firewall, this is the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure the firewall. Oracle VM-template-config-network, the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure the network. ovm-template-config-se Linux, the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure SE Linux. ovm-template-config-ssh, the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure SSH. ovm-template-config-system, Oracle VM template configuration script to configure the unique universal identifier for the server and do a general file cleanup. ovm-template-config-user is the Oracle VM template configuration script to configure a single user. Well, in the tags, we log in to the X86 PVM_PVM3 virtual machine and examine its Oracle VM guest edition setup. From your lab machine, we open a new terminal window and switch to the root user. We provide the password instructed by the instructor. The root password should be provided by the instructor. We start an SSH session to the X86-PVM3 virtual machine. The root password for the X86-PVM3 is cangetin1. So remember or note that we use the IP address that was acquired by the X86-PVM3 through the HTTP. You use this IP in the previous practice. You can view the IP address in the Oracle VM Manager user interface or in the network tabs for the X86-PVM virtual machine. So okay, this is for me. This is the IP in the example of the practice, but for me it was 254. So the password is cangetin1. So you see that I'm connected to the X86-PVM3 virtual machine. Well, we display the installed packages for the Oracle VM guest edition by using the rpm and the mod info commands. So we use the rpm -qa to query all the packages, and we are going to filter by the OVM API. Well, you should be list two of them, and the other one is OVM-template. So you should be able to view all the different OVM-template-config for the different stage, or components: SSH, user, authentication, firewall, array, and so on. Well, in addition to this, with mod info, we should view if the packages are already installed and the module is loaded into the kernel. So you will see that the driver, the OVM API.ko, is loaded into the kernel, right? You see that it's part of the Unbreakable Enterprise Kernel 3. Well, we display the status of the OVM daemon. That we show with the service OVMD status, and it shows us that it's running. Note that you can run the OVMD from the command line to perform actions outside the OVM's daemon's function as assistance service. Next is to run the OVMD with the --help parameter to obtain a list of the options supported when you run the OVMD from the command line. So you will see that we are the option to set a parameter for a specific key, or to get the parameter for a specific key, also to delete parameters, list of the different parameters that we have sent, and so on. In check and admin, run a specific script, as I showed you before in the slides of the lesson, change the debugging level, for example, for troubleshooting, and so on. So the most useful option is -- script equals to a script name, which is used to when you want to run an Oracle VM template configuration script directly. Well, the next step is to stop the -- underscore PBN3 by using the halt command. So with the halt, okay, we should get these messages. Well, we start the -- underscore PBN1 virtual machine, and we uncompress the file containing the Oracle VM guest edition packages. What to do is show, remember, we need to start a new terminal window in your lab machine, and we need to change to the root user. After that, we need to access to the Oracle VM manager host by using the /-x in uppercase ovm-mgr01.example.com command. The password for the root user, remember, is Oracle. Now we start the Firefox web browser season with this command. So we get the Firefox, and now in the Firefox window we enter the URL to get access to the Oracle VM Manager user interface application. https://localhost, what we should have in the history. For example, the link to do so, right? Now we will log into the Oracle VM Manager user interface as the admin user, password my Oracle1. And now we access the list of the virtual machines from the servers and VMs tabs by highlighting the pool 1. So we expand server pools, we highlight pool 1, and in the perspective drop-down list, we select virtual machines. We locate the -- underscore PBN1 in the list of the virtual machines, and we start it. The -- underscore PBN1 virtual machine starts on the obsvr01.example.com or the obsvr02.example.com. Here is where you get this information. Server, it showed me, for example, that is running this way. Another way to check this is to put focus on, highlight the server, and you will see which is the virtual machine that is running in this server. Well, after that, we need to access to the console of the -- underscore PBN1. So in the pool, we select the VM and we launch the console. After the boot process completes, log in as root with the password Oracle. Sorry, I'm going to repeat again. Know that you need to find the IP address for the -- underscore PBN1 by using the ifconfig -a. So know that your IP address may be different. Well, in my case is this one, 253. Now we start an SSH session to the virtual machine from your lab machine's desktop, and we use the IP found in the previous step. So I'm going to open a new terminal. Need to type yes to accept this RSI certificate, and remember the password for this is Oracle. Well, the next step is to display the OVM APA module. Note that the OVM APA kernel module is automatically installed when you install Oracle Linux. The other Oracle VM Guest Edition packages are not installed automatically. So as a root user on your lab machine, we need to transfer the files required to complete the guest addition lab activities to the root directory in the ISCSI_PVM1 virtual machine. Use secure copy the files from the OVS sheet pool component files directory on your lab machine. There are 3 files: guest addition _030714.tgset and guest additions install.sh and ovm-chkeyconfig-commands.sh. So in our lab machine, I'm going to open a new terminal. We navigate to OVS sheet pool component files. We list the contents. So we have the snippet file, tar snippet file, the sh script, and the other. So we do stp guest asterisk to root as root at 192.168.1.253 to the root directory. Password is Oracle, and we init the transfer. And the next step is to copy the OVM config script to the same location. And we transfer the third file. Well, after copying the Oracle VM guest addition lab activity files to the root directory in the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine, we use the cd command to access the root directory, and we use the ls-l command to display the contents of the root directory. So we go to the terminal in which we have connect to the remote virtual machine, and with the cd we go to root, and with the ls-l we list the contents, right? After that, we need to uncompress the guest addition _030714.tgset file. To do so, we use the tar set xbf of the guest addition _03. Well, the next step is to install the guest addition packages by using the rpm command and the --no deps parameter to disable dependency check before installing the packages. Well, to avoid typing the entire command, we display the guest addition install script. So we view the contents. This file contains the command to install the Oracle VM guest additions. You see, it contains the rpm command, okay, with all the different packages that were unzipped in the previous step. So to install the Oracle VM guest addition, by either copying and pasting the rpm command in the guest addition get additional install.sh file, or executing the guest addition install.sh file as a script. In this example, the guest addition install.sh file is executed. So with the bin sh, we invoke this. So with this starts the installation process. Note that in a production environment, install the package for the Oracle VM guest addition by using the yum command to ensure that all dependent packages are also installed. Well, after all the packages are installed, next step, number 4, is to start the OVMD service in ISCSI_PVM1. So from your SSH or console syscon to ISCSI_PVM1, we verify the status of the OVM daemon. So with service OVMD, we check the status. You will see that this is stopped. So if it's not started, we need to start the OVMD service with this command. Okay, so now we verify the status and it's running. We use the chkey config command to configure the OVMD service to start automatically at the boot time. So we check config --list OVMD. Note that the OVMD service is already configured to start at boot time. Because the OVMD service is running, the IP address of the virtual machine is now available from the network tabs for the virtual machine in the Oracle VM Manager user interface. To verify this, we get access to servers and VMs tabs, and we locate the ISCSI_PVM1 in the list of virtual machines. We click the expand button next to the ISCSI_PVM1, and we may click on the networks tab. So you will see that now here, okay, we have the IP address. So the IP address assigned to the ISCSI_PVM1 appears under the IP addresses field. Note that the IP address may not appear for minutes. You can proceed to the next step. In this example, the IP address is 192.168.1.253. Well, step number 4, we exercise the Oracle VM guest addition messaging facility. So we send a message from the virtual machine and retrieve it from the Oracle VM Manager. We send a message from the Oracle VM Manager and retrieve it from the virtual machine. So send a message from a virtual machine from the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine. We send a message as a key value pair by using the OVMD command. So we go to this terminal and we execute OVMD -p color equals red. If you do not have an available terminal window on your desktop, start a new terminal window and switch user to root. To retrieve the message sent from the virtual machine, we start the Oracle VM CLI from your available terminal window on your desktop. Remember, the password is the admin. For the admin is user is the My Oracle one. So, for example, from this terminal, which we have connected to the lab machine, we execute SSH-L admin to OVMMGR01 with the port 10,000. My Oracle one. Note that if you are prompted to continue the connection, you need to enter yes. Okay, from the Oracle VM CLI season, we retrieve the value set for the color key by using the get VM received message command. You have a tip, type get VMR and press the tab key to retrieve the complete command name. Press the space bar to enter the rest of the command. Well, so know that the use of the virtual machine's name with the get VM received messages command, not the host name for the GIS running in the virtual machine. Well, you see that we get exactly the key value pair, okay, that has been sent by the virtual machine. Now we send a message from the Oracle VM Manager user interface to the virtual machine. Well, to do so, we need to get access to the Oracle VM Manager user interface. And we locate the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine. Well, in this case, we have this one in the list, and we select from the servers and VMs tab. We highlight the ISCSI_PVM1, and we may click on the send VM message icon. Well, you cannot view it here. Remember, may click on the double arrow, and you have this one, send VM messages. In the send messages to virtual machine window, we click the virtual machine tab and we ensure that the iSCSI_PVM1 is selected. Note that you can select several running virtual machines at a time when sending messages. Select and deselect virtual machines on the Virtual Machines tab as needed. Only running virtual machines appear in the list. We may click in the Messages tab again, and we may click on creating a message icon in the toolbar. Well, in the Create VM message window, provide the key shape in the key field and the value circle in the message pane. Optionally, select the checkbox to log the message. After that, we may click on OK to return to the Send Messages to the Virtual Machine window. In the Send Messages to Virtual Machines window, click OK to send the message to the iSCSI_PVM1 virtual machine. Now we can access to your SSH or console CSON to iSCSI_PVM1, and we use the ovmd command to retrieve the message. The ovmd space dash backslash dash list command retrieves all messages, both send and receive. So you can identify the specified message by looking for by its key. So here with the ovmd with dash backslash dash out, okay, you will get the color red and the shape circle, the message that was sent to the manager and the message that was received from the manager. To view events in the Oracle VM Manager user interface for the iSCSI_PVM1 virtual machine, we select the iSCSI_PVM1 from the list of the virtual machines, and we may click the Display Select VM Events icon. So we select the PVM, and it doesn't appear here. Okay, you have this one, Display Selected VM Events, in this icon. Well, so you will see, for example, okay, that appears the color red as the message. So in the events window, we click the spam button to view details for the events, and we use the scroll bar to view the entire description for the events. When interpreting this event, remember to use the point of view of the Oracle VM Manager. Incoming is a message sent from a virtual machine. Outgoing is a message sent to a virtual machine. Well, after that, we close. So you see this is the incoming, and this is, for example, the outgoing. Well, so may click on close to close the events window, and that's all for practice 4-1. Practice 4-2, become familiar with the Oracle VM template configuration scripts. In this practice, you perform these tasks. We examine the Oracle VM template configuration structure. The Oracle VM template configuration scripts and associated structure are part of the Oracle VM Guest Edition feature. We exercise the commands associated with the Oracle VM template configuration process. We display the targets for the Oracle VM template configuration. We enable and disable configuration scripts for the configure and cleanup targets. We enable first boot configuration in a virtual machine and respond to prompts generated by the configuration scripts from the virtual machine's console. And we enable first boot configuration in a virtual machine and provide inputs for prompts generated by the configuration scripts by using the Oracle VM Guest Edition messaging facility. How it works: you can trigger the initial configuration or reconfiguration of a virtual machine at boot time by using the Oracle VM template configuration process. You can choose what type of configuration to perform by selecting what the scripts execute at boot time. Boot time configuration is very useful when preparing a template that you will use repeatedly with cloning. When a virtual machine created by cloning your template boots for the first time, it enters a configuration wizard which allows you to give each clone its own identity. This process is called first boot configuration. Targets and scripts. The process to set up first boot configuration in a virtual machine is similar to the run levels and the rc.d directory structure for the Unix System 5 init process. Targets. The targets are similar to run levels. A target indicates when a script executes. Two targets are currently active with the Oracle VM template configuration process, configure and cleanup. The configure target indicates that the enabled scripts execute and configuration steps. For example, for the network script, one or more network interfaces are configured. You use this target to trigger configuration activity at boot time. The cleanup target indicates that the enabled scripts execute and configuration steps. For example, the same network script mentioned in the previous bullet executes and configuration steps for network interfaces when used with the cleanup target. You use the cleanup target to remove configuration information before triggering a first boot reconfiguration. Modules are the scripts that execute for a given target. These are scripts to configure most aspects of the virtual machine. The available scripts are authentication, datetime, firewall, network, SE Linux, SSH, system, and user. You can create your own scripts and add them to the Oracle VM template configuration process. Commands. You use several commands and scripts to set up automatic configuration of a virtual machine at first boot. The ovm-chkeyconfig command. The ovm-chkeyconfig command is similar to the chkeyconfig command. With this command, you choose which scripts to run for a particular target. For example, for the configured target, all modules are enabled by default, which means that all scripts run if the configured target is invoked at boot time. You can choose to disable or enable scripts. For example, you could disable the firewall, network, and SSH scripts for the configured target. The ovmd command. In addition to the messaging capability available with ovmd, you use the ovmd command to invoke the processing for a particular target. For example, ovmd-s cleanup or ovmd-s configure. You usually invoke ovmd-s cleanup or ovmd-s configure manually during testing. After completing your testing, you use the ovmd in its service form to trigger first boot configuration. Service ovmd enable -initial-config. This command causes ovmd-s configure to execute at boot time. The ovmd-template-config script. The ovmd service invokes this master script to execute the scripts for a particular target, either when ovmd is invoked by you from the command line or when it becomes active at boot time. You can use the ovmd-template-config script to list all the parameters that are valid for a particular script. Well, about the tags, first one, we are going to examine the Oracle-template-config structure. So if you have no active action after season to iscasi_pvm1, we access virtual machine iscasi_pvm1 by using the console or the SSH command. Well, we already have one. All right. Well, you know that you could use the SSH to the 192.168.1.253. Note that the IP address for the iscasi_pvm1 virtual machine may be different. We view the targets and associate modules by using the ovm-chkeyconfig command with the --list parameter. So note that for clarity, two target columns were removed from the display that you have in the activity guide. Suspend and resume. These targets are not active at this time. The top row lists the available targets. Note that only the configure and cleanup targets are enabled modules. Modules are associated with the scripts. The other targets are not used at this time. So you see that in this case the configure is this column and the cleanup are the only one that they configured. Well, the next step is to access the etc template.d directory and execute a recursive listing of its directories. So with the cd we get access to the directory, and with the ls-lr we get this output. So only the configure.d and the cleanup.d and the scripts directories of an interest, signs, configure, and cleanup are the only active targets. The scripts directory contains the actual scripts, which are pointed to by the symbolic links in the configure.d and the cleanup.d directories. Notice that for both configure.d and cleanup.d directories, there is an entry for each enable module, as shown in the previous output of the ovm-chkey config-list command. Next step is to use the ovm-template-config master script to display the parameters expected by the configuration scripts. So in your SSH season to the ISCSI_PPM1, we execute the ovm-template-config script with the --help option to display the available options. So you will see that we have the different options, like enumerate, the value for some specific array, and so on. We use the ovm-template-config script with the --enumerate and --human-readable options to display the list of parameters expected by the network script. So we'll repeat again, but now with the enumerate. Configure Note that some parameters are required, but a prompt may appear based on a particular selection. For example, the IP address is a required parameter, but a prompt for an IP address appears only if you choose static for the boot proto. Note you usually do not invoke any of the configuration scripts, such as network or SE Linux, by using the ovm-template-config script step for testing purposes. When you trigger a first boot configuration for a virtual machine, the OVMD daemon calls the ovm-template-config script, which in turn executes each configuration script that you have enabled for the configured target with the ovm-chkey config. In the next practice, you will learn how to prepare the virtual machine for the first boot configuration. That's all for practice 4-2. Practice 4-3, prepare a virtual machine to use the Oracle VM template configuration process. In this practice, you set up the Oracle VM template configuration process to trigger an automatic configuration at boot time in the ISCSI_PPM1 virtual machine. Sometimes you perform the installation of the Oracle VM Guest Edition packages in the virtual machine. This must be done before you can set up the Oracle VM template configuration process in the virtual machine. About the tags, we set up the Oracle VM template configuration process to trigger automatic configuration at boot time. For your testing, you disable all modules for the configure and cleanup targets, except for the firewall, network, and authentication modules. You use the ovm-chkey config command for this step. To avoid typing each command, display the ovm-chkey config-command.sh script residing in the root directory of the ISCSI_PPM1 virtual machine. The ovm-chkey config-command.sh script contains the ovm-chkey config commands to enable or disable modules scripts for the configure and cleanup targets. We list the contents of the ovm-chkey config-commands.sh file. So we go to the root directory. And we list the contents, right? So we execute the ovm-chkey config-command.sh file. To do it, show. We invoke this. Now we check the results. I'm going to minimize. To be able to get the list more clear. So for clarity, the columns for the targets, suspend and migrate were removed from the display that you have in the activity guide. In this case, it's about configure. You will see that only authentication, firewall, and network has been enabled, right? All of the other has been disabled for the configure. And the cleanup, remember, only authentication and network are enabled too. Examine enable modules for the configure and the cleanup targets. The only modules enabled are authentication, firewall, and network. If you do not have an active console window to the ISCSI_PVM1 virtual machine, we start the console now. In the Oracle VM Manager user interface, we highlight the ISCSI_PVM1 in the list of the virtual machines, and we click the launch console icon. Well, remember, I already have one that is open, so I'm going to use this one. Well, in the ISCSI_PVM1 console window, we invoke the OVMD to execute the scripts for the cleanup target. Important, you have to execute the next commands from the console. Invoking the cleanup target executes the cleanup script for network, and you lose your network connection. So we type OVMD -s cleanup. The command takes 5 to 10 seconds to execute. Well, the next step is to enable the first boot configuration. So with service OVMD, we enable the initial config. Note when you execute this command, the initial_config parameter changes from no to yes in the etc sysconfig OVMD file, as shown in the following screenshot of the OVMD file. So initial config has changed to yes. Now we reboot the virtual machine and respond interactively to the configuration prompts. We reboot the virtual machine by executing the shutdown -r now command. Shutdown -r now. Well, keep the console open for the ISCSI_PVM1. You are reconnect to the console when the virtual machine reboots. Well, from your active console, for the ISCSI_PVM1 virtual machine, we observe the boot process. The boot process is interrupted, and the virtual machine starts the Oracle VM template configuration process. Well, we need to respond the prompts. Note that do not press the enter key at the prompts. The examples given are not default. If you do not provide a response, the configuration process may fail. So when prompted for the system hostname, we enter ISCSI PVM1 .example.com. The network device to configure is ETH0. Whether to activate the interface on system boot, we respond yes. The boot protocol, we enter DHCP, and the system root password, we enter cangetin1. Well, after you provide the root password, the virtual machine continues to boot, and the login prompt will appear. Well, remember, we need to get logged as root with the password of cangetin1. Well, we wait for getting the login prompt. Okay, so we type root password cangetin1. Well, we execute the ifconfig -a command to verify that the virtual machine has obtained an IP address on the 192.168.1.0 subnet. So with if config -a, okay, we check that we have obtained the IP address in this subnet. We display the contents of the etc sysconfig OVMD file by using the cat command to verify that the initial config parameter has been reset to no. So now initial config has been reset to no, right? We repeat the Oracle VM template configuration process to trigger automatic configuration at boot time, but this time, instead of specifying the parameters from the console, you use the Oracle VM guest addition messaging facility to provide the necessary input values. So we open the terminal window on your lab machine, and as a root user, we start a session to the Oracle VM CLI, or we reconnect to the previous Oracle VM CLI session. Well, I'm reconnect to the previous CLI session, actually this one. So you use the Oracle VM CLI to send messages to your virtual machine in the later step. Well, from the Oracle VM Manager, user interface, we get access to the console for the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine. You have closed the console window after the session early. So we close the window. Important, you have to execute the commands for the ISCSI_PVM1 from the console of the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine. Invoking the cleanup target executes the cleanup script for network and removing the configuration for ETA0, and you lose any SSH connection to the virtual machine. So we may click on display or launch the console. And we need to execute the OVMD command and invoke the cleanup target. Okay, we're waiting. So here we go. So now we invoke the OVMD -s cleanup. And we do enable the first boot configuration. So with the service OVMD enable initial config. You see that we repeat exactly the same steps as before. Well, after that, we need to open a new terminal window on your desktop and switch to the user root. And we need to access to the OVS seed pool directory and list its contents. We display the contents of the send vm message commands.txt file by using the cat command. Note that you can copy and paste the send vm message commands in this file in a later step to avoid having to type the commands. Well, we reboot the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine by using the shutdown -R now to take effect the last changes in the first boot configuration scripts. So from here, we type shutdown -R now. The virtual machine reboots, and we close the console window. We wait for the virtual machine to restart but do not access its console. The virtual machine's status goes from running to stopped to running. Note that you do not access the console to avoid pressing the enter key, which will trigger the first bit configuration process with the input from the console. From your active Oracle VM CLI window, we execute the send message command to provide the key value required for the hostname. Note that for all the send VM message commands in the following steps, you can copy and paste the corresponding commands from the terminal window that displays the content of the Oracle VM send message commands.txt file. You list the content of this file in step G. Well, so for the first one, here is where we have all the different commands. Well, I'm going to reduce the size, and I'm going to repeat again. So I'm going to copy this command, and we send the command using the OVM CLI. It was successfully executed. Note that if the virtual machine is not running or is not ready to accept messages, you get the following message: OVMRU_005012E. Operation not allowed. Virtual machine ISCSI_PVM1 is not running. Wait for a few seconds, recall the Oracle VM CLI command, and re-execute again. We provide the key message for the network device, Ethernet TH0. So this is the next command. So we copy and paste the command, and was successfully executed. Next step is to provide the key message to activate the interface at boot time. So this is for the interface at boot time. It was successfully executed. The digit 0 appended to the key is significant and specified the first interface to be configured. In this example, only one interface is configured. Next step is to provide the key message to specify the network boot protocol, the boot proto. Was successfully executed, and we provide the key message to specify the root password. It was successfully executed. Now happening, and don't know that nothing happens in the ISCSI_PVM1 until you provide the root password. The authentication script accepts the root password, and the configuration process takes place in the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine. From the Oracle VM Manager user interface, we locate the ISCSI_PVM virtual machine in the management pane, and we click the expand button next to it. Click in the Networks tab and verify that there is an IP address assigned to the virtual machine. In this case, we verify that we have this one. This is an indication that the first boot configuration was successful. Note your IP address may be different or may appear as 0.0.0.0 because the virtual machine is booting slowly. In some cases, the IP address does not appear at all, even if the IP address is assigned correctly. Well, from a terminal window on your lab machine, you access the ISCSI_PVM1 virtual machine by using the SSH command and the IP address assigned to the virtual machine. So for example, from this one, remember that the password is cangetin. And now we examine the log file for the Oracle VM template configuration process. The log file is var log ovm-template-config.log. In this file, you can see the 3 active targets: firewall, network, and authentication at boot time. After the messages has been received, the script for each of the targets is executed. So with tile var log ovm-template-config, you will see the configure for all of them: firewall, network, and authentication. Recall that the -s cleanup command that you executed before rebooting the virtual machine removed the network configuration for the virtual machine. If the virtual machine's network configuration is now set correctly, the first boot configuration process successfully retrieves the key pair values that you send to the virtual machine by using the send VM message command from your Oracle VM CLI season. Well, for the cleanup, we exit the command to terminate the SSA season to the X86 virtual machine. We use the exit command to terminate the Oracle VM CLI season. We log out of the Oracle VM Manager user interface and we close your Firefox window. And we use the exit command to close all the terminal windows. Well, in addition to this, you use the Ctrl-D to achieve the same objectives. Conclusion. Note that read the conclusion section but do not perform the step listed in this section. You have successfully set up first boot configuration in a virtual machine by using the Oracle VM template configuration facility. After testing the first boot configuration in your virtual machine, you prepare your virtual machine to be converted into a template by performing following steps. Trigger the cleanup target by executing the following command in your virtual machine: ovmd-s cleanup. You trigger the first boot configuration by executing the following command in your virtual machine: service ovmd enable-initial-config. You shut down your virtual machine. You convert your virtual machine into a template by using the Oracle VM Manager user interface or the Oracle VM CLI, and you clone your template into virtual machines. Every virtual machine created by cloning your template enters first boot config when it boots for the first time. In most cases, the virtual machine's owner responds to prompts from a virtual machine's console. You can, however, write a spec script that provides the input for the prompts by using the Oracle VM Guest Edition messaging facility from within the script. You can find an example of such a script in the white paper titled Oracle VM Templates Automated Virtual Machine Processing or Provisioning, which is available at the following location. And that's all for practice 4.3.